And finger pointing over Obamacare continue. With partisanship at new levels, can anything get done in Washington? Earlier, I talked with former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin, who's written a new book, Good Tidings and Great Joy, Protecting the Heart of Christmas. Governor Palin, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
It's an honor to be with you, Chris. Thanks.
When you look at all the troubles with Obamacare, all the problems with the website, the millions of cancellations, a lot of other things, what's your takeaway? In a macro sense, what's the problem?
Well, certainly the rollout itself and a malfunctioning website isn't the problem. Obamacare itself is the problem. You know, a road towards socialized medicine that's unaffordable and unasked for, unpopular, it's not workable. That's the problem. People want Obamacare scrapped. I think at this point, Chris, we don't even care if the website gets up and running. It's just going to prove to be an invitation to find out more problems as to Obamacare as a whole. You
know, the president came into office, and I want to talk about this big picture, vowing to transform America with big government solutions like Obamacare, like cap and trade. Do you think all the debacle, and Kathleen Sebelius called it that, the debacle with Obamacare is a tipping point for that approach to government?
I do. Thank goodness people are awakened from their slumber thinking that it's okay for government to deceive us and thinking that they can give us free stuff. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch, and people have opened their eyes now, understanding, oh, Tea Party patriots, they were right when they said that this big government policy crammed down our throat called Obamacare, it's not good for America. And people have awakened and realized that Tea Party was right then. They may be right on a couple of other issues, too. So, yeah, it's a tipping point. People are awake now.
But Governor, on the other hand, Obamacare does, and there's nobody really questioning this, it is going to extend coverage to 30 million Americans who are now uninsured. According to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, the last comprehensive Republican approach would only cover 3 million. I mean, isn't that a problem? Don't you guys have to come up with a better answer?
I am one to question it. I am one to question those numbers, that 30 million more people will receive health care coverage under Obamacare. I question it. One, I don't believe a doggone thing coming out of Washington, D.C. anymore. And isn't that a sad state of affairs where a normal American has to be so cynical of what government and government reports are telling us, even if it is a nonpartisan report? Chris, no. Once that employer mandate kicks in after the new year begins, next year, employer mandate, that's going to kick more and more people off private sector health care coverage that they had, at least up till now, been able to enjoy and been able to afford. There will be fewer people being covered under a sensible doctor-patient relationship-centered health care program under Obamacare than what we see today. I guarantee you that.
Let me switch subjects on you. You talk about dysfunction in Washington. Senate Democrats this week changed the rules so that to confirm a presidential nominee, except for the Supreme Court, it will now take a simple majority of 51 votes instead of a supermajority of 60 votes. It turns out that 79 Obama nominees have faced at least one vote to end debate, have faced the possibility of a filibuster. 79, more than double the 38 Bush nominees during his 8 full years in office. Question, doesn't any president, Republican or Democrat, have the right to be able to name his team unless a nominee is just wildly outside the mainstream?
Well, there are a lot of wildly outside the mainstream nominees and pals of Barack Obama that he wants to see help him usher in an agenda to transform America. So that's one thing that Congress has done right, and that is oppose some of these nominees. As for this rule change that some people are calling a nuclear option under Senate rules, you know, I guarantee this week, Thanksgiving dinner, people sitting around their tables, we're not going to be talking about the president blessing this thwarting of a balance of power power in Congress with new Senate rules called the nuclear option. People are going to be talking about our failed big government policies that will bankrupt this country. So this distraction, this new talking point in the media and with Congress, with senators, and with the president blessing this action, it's a distraction, and it's a lot of double standard and Democrat hypocrisy, because just a few years ago they were so anti-nuclear option. They were against any thought of Republicans ever considering changing these rules, and yet now, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. So American people, they don't care about distractions like that. They're not in that inside baseball Senate rule stuff. They want government to be back on our side. They want it to get out of our lives, and in order to do that, we need those who will not fundamentally transform America, but will fundamentally restore what's right about America. We do that by having good judicial nominees and nominees in these regulatory agencies and elsewhere. So this new rule change, it stinks.
All right. Let me ask you about something that when we told people that you were going to be on the show, a lot of us wanted to ask you about. It isn't pleasant, but you know where I'm headed. Martin Bashir, the MSNBC anchor, has had some ugly things to say about you. A couple of weeks ago, you made, frankly, I think fairly unobjectionable remarks, saying that comparing our debt to slavery and saying that eventually we're going to be beholden to our foreign masters. Mr. Bashir took great exception to that. He called you a, quote, world-class idiot, his words. And then he talked about a slave owner named Thistlewood who used to punish his slaves by having someone defecate, it's unbelievable, defecate in their mouths. And then he said this.
When Mrs. Palin invokes slavery, she doesn't just prove her rank ignorance. She confirms that if anyone truly qualified for a dose of discipline from Thomas Thistlewood, then she would be the outstanding candidate.
Governor, your reaction.
That's funny, because Bashir has invoked the analogy of slavery also. The definition of slavery is to be beholden to a master, and we will be beholden when that note is due, when we have taken from our children and our grandchildren and borrowed from China and other foreign countries in order to pay for our wants today. So we will be beholden to another master at some point here when that note's due. As for the, the networks condoning those type of statements, because there's been no punishment of the fella who said these words, that's hypocrisy. That's, a given, though. When a conservative woman says something that they take offense, they usually just kind of poo-poo it, laugh it off. It's no big deal. But as for personally taking shots like that, Chris, everybody in life takes shots. You have a decision to make when you take a shot. Are you going to become bitter or better? In a case like this, I don't have to accept his words, his vile, evil comments, so they don't have to affect me. I move on and I charge forth. However, if Mr. Bashir or anybody else in this media elite bubble that they put themselves in were to attack someone who is defenseless, like a vulnerable child who does not have that podium, that microphone that God has blessed me to be able to express my opinion, if they don't have that type of platform to defend themselves, well, if you want to see a mama grizzly get riled up and slap that person down, then you come after a vulnerable child. In this case, he didn't come after a vulnerable child. I can defend myself, and, I can take it.
A few days later, Bashir offered his apology. Here that is.
I made some comments which were deeply offensive and directed at Governor Sarah Palin. I wanted to take this opportunity to say sorry to Mrs. Palin. My words were wholly unacceptable.
First, do you accept his apology? And secondly, I want to go back to something you brought up. NBC, for instance, put Alec Baldwin off the air for a homophobic slur. They have taken no public action for what Bashir said about you.
Well, that's the executive hypocrisy that is so prevalent in that media elite bubble, where it depends on the target of the vile rants. It doesn't depend on what the rant itself actually is. And conservative women are a target of them. Now, as for the apologies, well, obviously, who am I to not accept an apology? Everyone must humble themselves and accept that offer to, of apology. But ask for the apologies too next time that they want to say such a thing and then get the attention that they were seeking after they've said it, and then they want to call and apologize to me in private. I'd like them to go through, say, Todd first, or one of my children first. Leave the message with them. Hear what they have to say about it, and then they can come to me.
Finally, on a happier note, you have a new book out. It's called Good Tidings and Great Joy, Protecting the Heart of Christmas. Governor, you say there is a link between faith and freedom. Explain what you mean.
It's an inherent link, and our founders knew that. They said that our government is, our Constitution for our government is written for a religious and moral people, meaning you have to have a strong foundation of faith, believing in something greater than self and not be so selfish. Otherwise, our Constitution isn't going to do any good. There's no need to follow a Constitution or a rule of law if you don't have that foundation. So it's very, very important that we protect the heart of Christmas, which then will protect the heart of America. And it's been a wonderful book tour, 21 cities thus far. And it is all about good tidings and great joy and amazing, amazing, inspiring, energetic people whom we've met along the trail. Love them, and it's a good book.
And finally, what's wrong with the idea of a business or a government at some level, in an effort to be inclusive to people of all faiths, saying Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas?
Well, there's not a doggone thing wrong with saying Happy Holidays. Just like I say before Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. After Christmas, you can say Happy Kwanzaa. But as for Christmas itself, Jesus is the reason for the season, and Christ is the foundation of Christmas. So to have a double standard try to be applied to say, well, you just can't say Merry Christmas or invoke God or Bethlehem or an angel, anything spiritual when it comes to actually that day, December 25th, Christmas. Otherwise, somebody may take offense. It's a double standard, more hypocrisy, more nonsense. And I'm just saying, no, we're going to protect the heart of Christmas because Christ is what it's all about.
Governor Palin, happy Thanksgiving and Merry Christmas to you and to all of the Palin family this year.
Thank you so much. To you also.
And you can go to our Facebook page for more on today's interview and Governor Palin's new book. Up next, it turns out the U.S. and Iran were secretly talking for the